so I know it's an individual species. So that's my goal, is to, actually I'm almost trying to hit 4,000 total for all my photographs, but for my yard, I'm getting close to 2,000. So in 2018, I got kind of frustrated with the state because we kept, pollinators was a big thing, but nobody was doing anything to basically go out and tell us what pollinators were at our nature preserves. So I decided I was going to do that. So I set up this study where I would visit 6 protected nature preserves, land and water reserves every year, and I would visit them 4 times a year to see them during the different seasons. And then I would do another 6 different sites for 5 years in a row, so 30 total. I spend about an hour of time. I do these little meandering transects, and I photograph everything. And originally, I wrote down everything. I was old school. So I wrote down everything on a little pad of paper. And now I've actually transitioned the last 2 years, the repeat years. I've transitioned to a voice recorder on my phone. So I have a lanyard I dangle around my phone, and I talk to myself for an hour. So this has been really interesting. People want to come out with me, and I'm like, do you really want to come out with me? Because I'm talking to myself for an hour. A lot of these sites are very remote, so that's okay. You can go out and talk yourself. And I don't think anybody's really seen me yet, but that is going to happen one of these days. So anyway, I'm recording all the different interactions between the insects and the flowers they visit. And what I do with all these photographs, I made a bunch of field guides. There's not enough field guides out there. I get frustrated because there's nothing out there specific for me. So I made my own field guides. So with the Field Museum, they have this rapid field guide program where you can provide them with your photographs, and they will design these little just photo guides for you. And so that's just bee genera. I did one for flies, wasps. I tackled all of the moths. That ended up being 5 different, and these are free downloads. They're available. I'm currently trying to work on flies of the Midwest, expanding that, but that's taking a lot more time than I thought. So the purpose of my book, I really wanted to bring awareness. I'd taken a lot of photographs of true bugs, and nobody has any field guides, and nobody is talking about true bugs visiting flowering plants and feeding on pollen and nectar. And the more photographs I take, the more I realize, oh my gosh, they really are. There's a lot of them out there. Even the assassin bugs are supposed to be out there killing other bugs. They're out there sipping on nectar. What's up with that? So I actually wanted to get that out there. I really want people to understand that they really are visiting. And what better way than to say it through a photograph? You want to argue with me? Fine, look at my photograph. I'm actually showing the bug doing that. I'm showing it to you. So I wanted to encourage other people, of course, to plant native and to get out there and to document what you observe. I love Bug Guide. That was my first introduction. So that's part of, University of Iowa versus Ames. It's in Ames, I know that. So that's one thing that I use, but it's just for all bugs in North America. So any creepy crawlies, I include spiders and centipedes. And then there's iNaturalist, which we all use for a lot of different things, but I pretty much just use it for insects and vertebrates. But I absolutely love iNaturalist. Bug Guide gives you states, so it basically records it by state, so you can look up how many things in a state. iNaturalist actually has a pinpoint location on a map, which is really nice because I can go to my nature preserves and see what everybody has documented on my nature preserve and do a search. And so it's really good community citizen science sharing. I love that sharing. I'm so excited about the cicadas, which is why I'm wearing this. Because we're going to map the heck out of cicadas this year, and we're going to know exactly where all the different species of 13 and 17-year cicadas are actually popping up. And so our maps are going to be so much better in the next 13 and 17 years. Right? So that's pretty exciting. So I decided within true bugs, these are the real true bugs that I'm covering, the heteroptera. So I excluded like leaf hoppers, plant hoppers, tree hoppers, cicadas, aphids, there's a bunch of others that I just don't feel like are feeding on pollen and nectar. Like the heteroptera are. So I had basically a heteroptera characterized by having these stabby mouth parts. They've got these little syringe stab things that they basically suck plant juices out of or nectar, and they also can get pollen out of that. So anyway, it's just kind of going over the different infraorders. There's 2 major groups, and that's all in the book, all that technical stuff. But just kind of the basics. Okay, this is one thing I had to teach myself. Because you see the brown stink bugs out in the yards. Everybody wants to say, oh my gosh, it's brown marmorated stink bugs. And yes, I've got them in my house. And if you've got brown stink bugs in your house, they are most likely the brown marmorated stink bugs. They are non-native. We don't like them. You can get rid of them, but they will stink when you get rid of them. They have those light patches on the antennae. That is a characteristic for all brown marmorated stink bugs. If you see those light patches on the antennae, you have brown marmorated stink bugs. This other one over here has a dark mark on the membranous hindwings. That is one of the predatory stink bugs. Sometimes it fades off, but those are the ones that you'll see sucking the juice out of monarch caterpillars and other things. Those are the predator ones. They are native. They serve their role, but that's their role. The common brown stink bug, which is Eustachius, that is the one that we find on the plants all the time. All the different plants. There's like 4 main species, and I actually have a chart on how to identify those 4 main species based on their belly, their ventral. There's little spots and on the sphericals and little spots on their ventral side. So you kind of have to get an undershot. It's just kind of tricky to get these guys. Sometimes they'll actually do it for you. They'll try to hide from you, and they'll like sneak around and they show off their belly, which is really nice because that's exactly what I want them to do. Milkweed seed bugs. So you guys have probably all seen these. These are definitely, excuse me, on milkweed. So you have the large milkweed, which has a horizontal band across the center. They're usually a little bit more orange, but they are bigger, and they have that one central black stripe across the center of the back. The false milkweed bug, excuse me, actually does not, it can be seen on milkweeds, but because it's false, it actually feeds on the oxeye false sunflower. So Heliopsis is this plant that go to. It's right there. It's visiting golden Alexanders. But it basically has to raise its young on oxeye false sunflower, Heliopsis. The small milkweed bug, just like the large milkweed bug, their young feed on milkweed pods. Oh, John, I'm getting over a cold here. So, back to the difference between the two of them. So, all right, small milkweed bug has a single heart on the back. So that black thorax has one big heart. The false milkweed bug has a stack of 2 hearts back to back. So those are basically the 3, top side version of those, and you can identify them easily. Little tiny black bugs. These look like seeds. Very common on a lot of different plants. The white margin burrow bug has white from one eye all the way around the back side of the bug to the other eye. That's the white margin burrow bug. Ebony bugs do not have this triangular scutellum over the back. It's just one big hovering over the back. And they have a little bit of white or kind of a translucent, but it doesn't go all the way up to the eye. So it doesn't go on the thorax. It only goes around part of the back of the abdomen. Green stink bugs. The common green stink bug is the one that we all see out in the woods early in the spring. I know when we're burning, that's the first bug that we see out in the woods. They're flying around. We see them quite often. These other 2 are actually kind of rare. The pink bordered green stink bug is what I call it, because it usually has a bright pink outer rim. This one's kind of plain and dull, so it looks kind of like the others. But it usually does have kind of a pale pink or pale border around it, and it does like milkweeds. The red-shouldered stink bug usually has a red shoulder, spikes, or a line across the back. Both those other 2 are a little bit smaller. So where to find bugs? You find them all over the place. So some bugs, of course, are household pests. So we have the box elder bug. When I was little, box elder bugs were all over my grandma's house. I remember that smell. They're actually called a scentless plant bug. They have a scent. So box elder bugs do tend to like to shelter inside houses or buildings in the winter. Brown marmorated stink bugs are actually starting to come into our house. So they can be pests. Garden pests, I have big arguments all because every one of these is native, and so I don't consider them a pest. They have their role to serve. So I get into arguments on Facebook, which I shouldn't do. They have their role. They belong there. They're doing their thing. I plant plants not for cosmetics. I plant plants, native plants, to attract native wildlife. That is the purpose of those plants. If they're being chewed on, then they're serving their purpose. And I don't care if they look raggedy. That's fine. That's what they're there for. Some of these are used for biocontrol. So you can actually buy on Amazon, you can actually buy a container of minute pirate bugs. Those are, supposedly they're supposed to be non-native, but if you look on iNaturalist, there's actually more in North America than there are in Europe, by far. So I'm not quite sure. They've been here for a long time. and they are being used, and they're not overpopulating. They eat thrips, which everybody loves, to get rid of course, for your roses and stuff. So you could actually buy containers of those. The other ones, like I say, the damsel bugs, the spine soldier bug, which was that brown stink bug, and then the pale green assassin bugs all perform a service by killing other bugs that might be harmful. So a lot of them, what I really want to get into is the relationship between bugs and native plants. So these are some of my favorites, these little tiny helmeted squash bugs underneath a leaf. I just thought that was so cool because I got to see the eggs, and they're just hatching right now. Apologize. Trying to get over this. So many of them actually lay their eggs and basically have to have their host plants. So I talked about the oxeye false sunflower being the host plant for the false milkweed bugs. Obviously, milkweed bugs are laying their eggs and their babies are feeding on the little milkweed pods. You just scrape off the babies when you collect the milkweed pods, and they're just fine. I have never seen any serious damage to milkweed pods from these bugs, and I've never heard anything. So for some reason, people do, and they should, appreciate these milkweed seed bugs. But one of my problems is now that I know about bugs, I go out and collect, and I find bugs everywhere. And so I'm trying to collect seeds, and it's like, oh, I can't collect that seed head because it's full of bugs. And so I don't want to take the bugs out of my yard because they're my bugs, and I love my bugs. So this is what happened this year. I tried to collect a whole bunch of mountain mint and rattlesnake master, and I came out with, tubs full of bugs, and I tried to screen them. That's a window screen, so I tried to put them, because mountain mint's a really, really small seed, and so I tried to screen it through the little window screen, and the bugs still got through the window screen. So I am not able to separate them. So I kind of laid them out and said, well, maybe some of the bugs will get out. Okay. Obviously, you can transport them quickly to your location, and you can seed new areas with your bugs, but I don't want to store them a long time and have the bugs die. Well, that's hard for me. Some bugs are predatory, like I said, and some are opportunist. So I thought this center picture was kind of interesting. Essentially, the milkweed has killed that honeybee. The honeybee got stuck, was trying to feed on milkweed, and there was plenty in the milkweed, basically got stuck to his legs, and he couldn't get out, and so he died. And then the small milkweed bug comes around and says, that sounds interesting, I'll feed on that. And then, of course, the far one is I haven't fixed that one. That's a bee assassin, not a wheel bug, feeding on a Japanese beetle. And so anything that feeds on Japanese beetles we love, right? So many bugs feed on flower pollen and nectar. And so this just shows you some of the assassin bugs. The assassin bug up there on mountain mint that's clearly got his head feeding on nectar. I've seen this again and again and again. There's so many of these bugs that just chewing down on nectar and pollen. And so I really wanted to highlight that in my book. So basically, this is a list of plants, and I'll go over every one of these. So this is a list of plants that seem to have insects that specialize on those particular plants. And so while some of the generalist plants, of course, are wonderful because they attract lots of insects, if you want a specific bug, you have to have these plants. So I thought that's been kind of interesting for me. There is the pink-bordered green stink bug on milkweed. I always find them on milkweeds. Doesn't matter what kind of milkweed. The 4 o'clock bug is supposed to be found on mirabilis, wild 4 o'clocks. I always find them on milkweeds here. That's a Western species that's thought to have come over here on the trains, basically traveled along the trains and the railroad corridors and whatnot, and his came into Illinois. But I almost always find them on milkweeds. And then, of course, the small and large milkweed bug. Mountain mint's number one. Bugs love mountain mint. Absolutely, everybody should have mountain mint. It's just fragrant. What's great about mountain mints, there's several different species that bloom a little bit different timing, but it doesn't get big and aggressive. People criticize, compass plant and cut plant, and oh my gosh, it's horrible, and they take over and things like that. Mountain mint doesn't take over. It's nice and short, and it's pretty, and there's just a ton of different types of insects that will use this. And so I call that the mountain mint seed bug. It's a particular type of seed bug. The long-necked seed bug is a dirt-colored seed bug. They're mostly found in the dirt, so they're supposed to eat seeds that fall onto the dirt, but I find them on the mountain mint flowers feeding, and they actually stay there all winter. I actually find them actually overwintering in the seed heads. And the red-shouldered stink bug is a new one that is moving north. there are some bugs, I know there's some butterflies as well, that are actually moving north because of global warming. And this is kind of exciting. There are a few success stories, and that's a really nice one because that's a very attractive bug. So it is able to move north with our warming climates. So I'm really excited to learn about that one. This is an interesting one. This is a leaf-footed bug, and for some reason, their larvae, their nymphs, actually like Tichterfold. So desmodiums, all types of desmodiums, but they really like desmodium. So the adults will visit desmodium and other pea flowers, but they tend to gather at the base of the flower and they kind of suck the juices out, and sometimes the flower droops over or whatnot. But they kind of have their little mating balls and parties at the base of flowers, not just legumes, but other flowers. But the little larvae are found. They really blend in really well, too. Broad-headed bugs are found on all types of legumes. This one happened to be a round-head bush clover. I find them on Sericea lesbideza, which I really dislike because we're out trying to spray Sericea lesbideza, and I don't want to spray the broad-headed bugs because these are native. Then this is a new one for me. This I just barely made it into my book. But I was out seeing this dust. My eyesight isn't as great as it used to be. So I'm out looking at this like gray dust on the underside of my Baptisia, my white-whorled indigo leaves. And sure enough, I had to take a picture of it and brought it back and blew it up. It's like, oh my gosh, these are lace bugs. And they are exclusive to Baptisia. So that's a real cool one to find. I don't know that they're feeding on the flowers, but they have to have a flowering plant, which is Baptisia. This is a rapid plant bug. These are related to the alfalfa plant bugs, but this is a native one on partridge pea. He's obviously feeding on nectar because pollen, because partridge pea's flowers do not produce nectar. They produce nectar in the little glands, so it's nectar-like substance. There's a bunch of bugs. These twice-stabbed stink bugs like a bunch of different types of plants. So they like these pinkish purple tube-like flowers. So they like mints and they like Scopulariaceae, the figworts, turtle heads, things like that. They'll go inside them. The little babies will grow on there, and basically you'll see them on the inside. You'll see these little red and black bugs on the inside of your flower heads, and they're always mating and they're always making more. This is a new one for me. I got really excited about this, and I'm calling this one the rattlesnake master stink bug. However, this year I found them all over Golden Alexander, which is related to the rattlesnake master. They're both in the carrot family, so it would make sense that they're also on Golden Alexander. These overwinter, their babies and their larvae overwinter in the seed head somehow, probably an egg stage or something, in the rattlesnake master. So again, when we're collecting the seeds of rattlesnake master, we're probably spraying these around. But I got these in my backyard, and I saw them from July through October until it got cold. And so they exclusively stick to rattlesnake master late in the season. But right now, they're out there on Golden Alexanders. Goldenrods, of course, are yellow. They attract a lot of assassin bugs that kind of course, this orange assassin bug, yellow assassin bug, it blends in because it's got a little camouflage, and so it runs around there trying to eat other things. But I do think I see them really associated with flowers a lot. The other zealous assassin bug, that particular species does sip on the goldenrod flowers, and I see it a lot feeding on the actual goldenrod. Asters, of course, all the different kinds of asters. There's so many different asters. Of course, they're not aster anymore, but I still call them asters. So there's a bunch of bugs specific to the spotted aster mirid. That one is found on a lot of different types of asters. Daisy fleabane, I said this, this is one that we don't plant. This is one that just pops up as a native weed. But daisy fleabane is actually one of the most important plants for true bugs. These are all multiple species of erigeron, so it's got a long bloom time. And so the insects find it, but it's got such a little delicate flower. Who would think? It's not just true bugs. There's other insects, too, that will visit daisy fleabane. So if it pops up in your garden, don't pull it. Just let it be. It's not going to take over. So the scentless plant bug, sometimes I call that the pink plant bug. It's got kind of a greenish pink color to it. Tarnished plant bugs, people don't like them because they'll create little spots on your leaves. I've never seen that really on my plants, but like I said, I don't care. So I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the bug. Prickly pear cactus. I don't have a lot of prickly pear cactus around because I don't have sand prairie, but down in Mason County around Havana, these were taken down by Beardstown. But whenever you have prickly pears, if you start looking, this other one was taken in Missouri. This individual, these cacticorid bugs, the adults and the nymphs, exclusively live on prickly pear cactus. They do not leave the plant. They hang out on that plant. They live their whole life on that plant. So that's pretty cool. So if you have cactus, look for these bugs because they really are beautiful. That's the same thing with this euphoria bug. So these like spurges. So flowering spurges are most common one, of course, we have in the prairie. These have the little spots in the antennae. So they have this little flattened area before that last antennal segment. So that's a euphorbia bug. You won't find them anywhere else. This one is interesting. So this one is a type of leaf-footed bug. I wish it had a better name because it's so cool. This one, as an adult, has these matted hairs that look like crushed velvet. I mean, just really dense little hairs, kind of a neat pattern on them. I see the adults on all sorts of different plants, but it's the nymph that actually likes milkwort. And so it's considered a specialist on milkworts because I think the babies are reared on milkworts. Again, the oxeye false sunflower, Heliopsis. If you have that plant, you're going to have false milkweed bugs. They are very, very common. Very similar to the small milkweed bug, but this one has the 2 hearts on the back. Biennial Gara. You can also see these sometimes on common evening primrose. But if you have Biennial Gara, oh my gosh, you have got to check the flowers of these because they'll be covered with these little stilt bugs. And you'll see the babies and you'll see the adults and whatnot just hanging out, making more stilt bugs, whatnot. But they're just so cute. They're so delicate. I just always enjoy pointing those out to people. There's just so much education you can learn. You can take kids out and show them bugs. Most of these bugs, not all of them, most of these bugs are relatively harmless. There's assassin bugs like the wheel bug that you have to respect. And even I get a little squeamish if one gets on me. I don't want it on me. I don't want to be bit and stung because it's really painful. But for the most part, other than the assassins, these are not going to hurt you. This ornate plant bug is a little teeny tiny thing, usually found on ragweeds. So it's the common ragweed, giant ragweed. I thought these were weeds. I pulled them on my prairie. They're both native, but they attract a ton of insects. So now that I photograph all these insects on ragweed, I'm like, I gotta leave ragweed in my yard. I do. I have to leave some ragweed in my yard so I can support these insects. Not in my whole prairie, but I've got places that I allow it to grow. Spiderwort, this is another really unusual one. It has a bunch of different color forms this plant bug does. This is the most common plant. The color form that I see is kind of black with an orange border. They also come in all black, and they come with an orange collar but they hang out in spiderwort. They just love the little clusters of spiderwort. That's where I find them. The green stink bugs, that common green stink bug that we find out in the woods, once in a while the adults will sip on nectar. So I found them on common milkweed. But the babies, they just look like they were meant to camouflage with orange jewelweed. And that's where I find the babies. I always find them. They blend in so well, don't they? On orange jewelweed. They just love that plant. So this is not a very good picture, but this is a scentless plant bug that is exclusive to the bone sets. And so I find that one on bone set. This is an elderberry plant bug, only found on elderberry bushes, so elderberry flowers. Really kind of neat. This particular genus has a fuzzy antennae. The first antennal segment is really fuzzy. And so that's how you identify Noroclopus. And this is the generalist one. So I've got a little bit of time. I can go over the generalist ones. So there's a lot of plants that may not just attract a specialist bug, but may attract all sorts of different types of bugs. And so these are all still very, very important to have in your prairie and to go visit when you're out looking for bugs. So just a few examples of things I hadn't showed you yet. This is called the lupin bug. I don't have lupins in my area. I was just up at the near the Dixon Waterfowl Refuge, and they planted a whole bunch of lupins up there. I didn't see this bug there, but that is called the lupin bug, so I assume they probably do feed on lupin. They do like legumes, so pea plants, but they also like mountain mint. And this other scentless plant bug, again, it doesn't have a nice common name to it, but I find those on golden Alexanders. I'm going to say again, golden Alexander is a good plant. Patent mountain mint. So Indian hemp and dogbane, again, nobody plants Indian hemp. It pops up on its own. You let it have its little space in the corner. Does just fine and attracts a ton of insects. Dogbanes, I wish I had some of them. They're more of a savanna open woodland plant, but they do attract a lot of different true bugs, and there's some wasps and bees that also go to dogbanes. They're really cool. So these are just some of the bugs that I found. Again, not a lot of them have good common names. Tedia, I don't know what to call that yet. got to have some common names. I like to talk common names. I get criticized by my botany colleagues because you can't really talk to private landowners in Latin all the time. And I have never taken Latin, so when I talk in Latin, I mispronounce things. I use my Midwest accent, and I sound stupid. My professors would always say, "Oh, that's okay, Angella. You just be you." So, okay, fine. I'm going to call it a small milkweed bug. So, yes, there's still what's amazing thing of Google. A lot of times you can type in a common name. And if your New England aster changes its name, you type in New England aster, and it'll tell you what the current scientific name of New England aster is, so you don't have to do all that work. So anyway, there's that spine soldier bug that feeds on those caterpillars, that stabs the caterpillars and sucks all the juice out of them. Clearly, you can't tell me that he's not feeding on nectar. He's got his little thing in there, his little syringe in there, and he's sucking up some nectar. Now, maybe he's doing it just because he wants a sugar snack. I don't know. Maybe you just, I don't know this important part of the diet, but there's so much we don't know. There's just a lot. There's these interactions going on, and we don't know anything about them. And I just never hear true bugs mentioned when they talk about pollinators. I mean, I'm so glad that the pollinator discussion has now broadened to include more than just bumblebees and butterflies. That is great. We're talking about other types of bees now. We're talking about wasps. We're talking about flies. And we're talking about beetles. That is huge. That is wonderful. I study all of those in all of my surveys. I photograph a ton of all those different types of insects, but the bugs are out there too. There are about 7% of all the different types of insects that I photograph. The bugs represent about 7% of the total number of individuals. It's similar with the number of species. I think it's between 5 and 6% of the number of species that I see on these plants are also true bugs. So they're still representing a small but significant group. So that's the bee assassin. I had labeled it wrong earlier. So that bee assassin is on pale purple coneflower. The little jagged ambush bug nymphs, for whatever reason, I think this is so silly because the little nymphs are bright green. They are not fooling anybody. Actually, they do. I don't know how they fool anybody because you can see them. You can see their little heads sticking up in the green. And why would an insect fall for that? But they do. They fall for that. Alfalfa plant bug is non-native, but it kind of serves a decent role as a pollinator. I haven't seen them explode yet. You always have to say yet with a qualifier because it could happen. Then that's up on the top. That is that eustachius. That's the native brown stink bug. It likes all sorts of flowers. And again, I got a partial belly shot, so I know which one that is based on the underside of that one. Black-eyed Susans, that's another plant that when I first started planting all the black-eyed Susans, I thought, gosh, nothing's visiting them until you spend a little more time. And there are a lot of things. There might not be a lot of bees that visit black-eyed Susan and not a lot of butterflies that visit them, but there are a lot of insects, different types of insects that will visit. You just have to have your timing right on these. Again, the spined assassin bug, that's supposed to be out there killing things. It's feeding on pollen. The other one, that ringed assassin bug, same thing. It's feeding on pollen and stuff. Damsel bug, every one of these is all predatory. They're not supposed to be feeding on pollen. You can also see pollen on their bodies. So if they're visiting one flower, feeding on pollen, then going to the same, same species of plant with that pollen, they are transporting pollen. So they could potentially be pollinators. Do I think they're as effective as bees? Of course not. Nothing's as effective as a bee for transporting pollen. Although different plants do have specific pollinators. But I think that bugs are doing something. Another leaf-footed bug, that's actually a pretty one. You're not very often found on plants. That brown stink bug, again, all over the plants. And the little seed bug like the ebony bug, very, very common. If you start looking, they look like little tiny black seeds, but they're out there. This is a neat one. This one on the bottom there, big-eyed bug, has great big huge eyes. We don't know a whole lot about this bug, but I have now found them on several. I even found them on dandelions, which I'm not a big fan of dandelions, but if they pop up in my yard, I don't feel like I'm providing full nutrients by letting dandelions grow in my yard, but they do support a few insects. So if they want, to snack on, it's kind of like a candy bar or something. If they want to snack on that, that's fine. So big-eyed bugs are out there feeding on pussy toes. The white margin borer bug, again, with the white all the way around from eye to eye, feeds on pussy toes. There's the red-shouldered stink bug with that clear red shoulder all the way across the back and the epaulet on the thorax there. Those were mating on on pussy toes. I can't seem to grow pussy toes. It's a really difficult one because it's so short that it can't handle a lot of competition. You have to have really dry soils. So I planted some on the very top of this hill that I have, a little mini hill prairie. The plants are still alive. I just can't get them to bloom and obviously not attract anything if they're not blooming. So I have to go to the nature preserve, which is about a quarter of a mile away from my house, and that's where I see all these. Wild quinine. I never thought wild quinine would attract as many bugs. It's a flower that it doesn't have the real petals like. You wouldn't think it would attract. It attracts a lot. It attracts really interesting bees, not the big ones. You don't see bumblebees on wild quinine, but you see some really little. There's a red bee out there that's absolutely gorgeous that comes to wild quinine. So pay attention to wild quinine. It's a really cool plant, but it will attract a whole bunch of different things. And it's just amazing. I'm so excited that I can still go out to my yard and find new species. Like I said, I'm getting close to 2,000 in my 3-acre yard. I am still finding new species in my own yard, and it is amazing. Part of that is attributed to the fact that I have a large nature preserve near me, and so I have a source from which they're coming from. That's a big thing in restoration. You can't just restore something out in the middle of 500 acres of cornfield and expect to get a good diversity. But if you plant, if your yard or your little piece of prairie that you're planting is close to or next to, within flight distance of a natural area and the community that has a lot of diversity of insects, they will come. They will find your little oasis and they will come and you will help support them into the future because we're losing these natural areas. And if we don't have another place for them to go to, when we lose more natural areas, it's sad to say, but that's part of my job. And we see natural areas, just like Belleville Prairie. I'm sure you've all heard about that. They lost half of that, and then everybody's really devastated about that. We're losing these sites. But if you can plant something close enough, they will come if they can fly there. Some of these bugs I know some of the bees, we say about a mile. Some bees will travel a little further than a mile. Certainly, it needs to be within a mile, but they can make it. And some of them can fly further than you think because of winds. So occasionally bugs get picked up and blown over. I recently had a fly show up on one of my sand prairies in Henderson County that had not been documented from anywhere out. I think it had been documented from western Kansas, western Nebraska, and Oklahoma. And it shows up in west central Illinois. That's amazing far away. No, it's never been seen in Missouri. It's never been seen in eastern Kansas. How did it make it all the way over to Illinois? Maybe it was from our crazy winds, but I saw 3 of them. So for these 3 of those little flies to basically blow all the way over into a sand prairie in Henderson County is amazing. Will they establish there? Are they already established there? We don't know. I'm going to go back, obviously, and see if I can find if they've established in future years. I'm going to keep going to the site and see if they can maintain their population. But isn't that amazing that they could do that they can have these huge range extensions? So we can be a part of that. We can help that. Wild bergamot and the spotted bee balms. I mean, there's other bee balm type plants out there. They're just absolutely amazing. They attract a tremendous amount of bugs. So you have that leaf-footed bug. Again, it doesn't visit very many flowers. Even the brown marmorated stink bug, the non-native nasty thing, is fed on spotted bee balm. It's feeding on the pollen. Those jagged ambush bugs, the little green larvae they're trying to hide in there. He's doing a little bit better job than the other plant he was on. But this clouded plant bug in the center there, the one with the fuzzy antennae, just so cool. Coreopsis, again, doesn't seem to attract a lot of pollinators until you look close. And once you look close, there's some specific ones. This dirt-colored seed bug, again, supposed to be in the dirt, feeding on seeds. That's the only place we've ever seen this bug on the flowers is on Coreopsis. So it's a nymph of a nettle plant bug feeding on Coreopsis. And again, a leaf-footed nymph, the flattened one that likes Desmodium, was on Coreopsis. So that's pretty cool. Again, diversity, diversity, diversity. You want diverse bugs, you plant diverse plants. You guys all know that, but I'm going to say it again. Brown stink bug, again, I'm trying to get the belly shot. That seed bug there, that's the one that I call the mountain mint seed bug. He was visiting gray-headed coneflower. Gray-headed coneflower, again, is kind of interesting plant. It doesn't attract a lot of things seemingly until you pay attention, but there's the little pollen rings around it as it kind of matures. There's the bees that'll actually circle the gray-headed coneflower, and they're just amazing. There's so many things out there to see. And so I just kind of wanted to share that with you. Ironweed is just absolutely gorgeous. It took me years and years. Frustrating because ironweed grows out in pastures because cows don't like it. And you go drive by pastures and see a whole bunch of ironweed growing, and yet I couldn't get it to grow in my own yard. It took me about 7 or 8 years to get ironweed established in my own yard. This year I found a really rare bee that we were going to propose for listing, but I think partly because I found it in my own backyard, they decided it was too common to list. So Laura took it off of our proposed listing, but just amazing. I mean, I found this is a really rare bee, and I found it in my backyard attracted to ironweed. So got the jagged ambush bugs. Again, they're making more jagged ambush bugs. I see a lot of that. My friends laugh because I always get excited when I'm doing photography. It's always good to find bugs, male and female, making more because they get busy. And then you have the comparison between the male and the female. And they're usually so busy, you can get lots of different angles. I actually got to give a talk this year in February for Valentine's Day about bug love. So I thought that was fun. She asked me, do you have any pictures of bugs, mating? Well, I got a few, just a few. So I'm kind of wrapping this up with a couple. I just love these sibling wheel bugs out there. These are the ones I'm a little bit afraid of. They really had a good year last year, and there was a lot of people posting wheel bug pictures on Facebook, I know. But these are just nymphs. They have a really nasty syringe. You do not want to get stung by these. So I will freak out if one jumps onto my hand. They don't mean to obviously bite me. But if they did, I would be scared and it would hurt. So respect bugs, but take the time to notice them. I mean, the more people out there noticing, taking photographs, uploading them to iNaturalist and whatnot, just sharing with other people. But yeah, plant more plants. Go out there and buy some more of those plants. Yeah, it's a good thing you're not doing the plant sale today, because I'd probably be competing with you to buy some plants. So that's all I have. I was going to take questions during the development. Sorry I didn't do that. But if anybody has questions now.
Anybody have questions?
What is a true bug? It's a member of the Heteroptera. So true bugs can be broader bugs in the entomology sense. So in the study of insects, can include cicadas, leafhoppers, treehoppers, aphids, whatnot. But specifically, Heteroptera are the real true bugs, for whatever that means. I've always used the term bug loosely to mean any creepy crawlies. But in this case, scientifically, it means Heteroptera. So these with that syringe-like stabby mouth part, it actually has 4 segments in it, and there's all these. But that's the big characteristic. It has that big, long, stabby part. Any other questions? I'm so excited. Cicadas are coming. I'm going to get the 13 in my backyard. I don't hear if you're supposed to get was it 13 or 17? Both, man. They say there's no overlap, so there's about a 30-mile separation between, and I don't know where that closest point is. I'm still hoping that northern Fulton and Peoria County might get the 17, so I don't have to drive too far, because that's within my coverage area. But I did get to go see Brood X. So Brood X occurred in, 2021 in far, far east central. So there's only a couple of counties, Danville area. And I actually got the opportunity to go visit with Katie Dana, who's the Natural History Survey's cicada expert. And she actually showed me how to flip over their bellies and there's a little size difference between the two different Magis cicadas. There's a lot of different species coming out now, but you basically want a ventral shot, just like the brown stink bug. You want to take their belly. So you grab them, you hold them over left hand, so I can photograph the right hand. So you grab them with left hand, hold them over, get their bellies, and to photograph a belly shot. That will tell you what species it is. You post it on iNaturalist. Somebody will hopefully be able to identify the species for you. But it's going to be exciting because already I found the holes. Let's see, it was about 5 days ago, I found holes in my yard. I go, oh, those got to be cicadas. And then I walked around the yard and I think I found at least like 20 sheds, but I can't find the adults yet. So I don't know if they're just in so low numbers and they're hiding or what. They're coming out in the wrong time of the day because I've been busy, so I don't get out my yard till like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So maybe I'm missing them, but I haven't heard them yet either. But my friends, 2 hours to the south of me, they say they're exploding. I know Fayette County right now, Ramsey area, they are just everywhere in the prairie. So it's coming. It's just a matter of taking the time. I know down south, Georgia's about ready to pass their peak. They're about done in Georgia. And so it's coming this way. So we got the Great Southern Brood, which is Illinois is kind of weird, but kind of the southern half of the state has the Great Southern Brood, which is the 13-year. And the Northern Illinois Brood is the 17-year. Like I said, there's no overlap. So there's going to be like a 30-mile distance between the two in some areas. So hopefully people are coming from other states, coming to Illinois to try to see both, which is exciting. Illinois is attracting cicada tourists, right? That's awesome. I mean, really, I'm so excited. I'm afraid we're telling the wrong time, though, because in the past, it's been like June 10th is the time when brood X, and now it's going to be before June 10th. So around here, it's probably going to be in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, third, fourth week of May, we're going to be maybe still in June. Maybe still June 10th, there'll be a few, but it won't be peak necessarily because everything's just a little bit early. But yeah, it's going to get loud. It's going to get exciting. I love it. I told my mother freaked out. I gave that one talk on bug love. And the only thing the newspaper reporter got out of my whole talk about bugs mating and whatnot and how bugs did it and all these cool things about bugs, the only thing that got out of that is, oh my gosh, cicadas are coming. It's going to be loud and obnoxious. I was like, no, Mother, it's going to be okay. Most of your trees will be fine. All this about covering your trees. And they're going to basically flag some of the trees. So some of your little tender limb tree tips will basically die and just droop. And a healthy tree is going to be just fine. This is not the year to plant new trees because there could be potential risk in doing so. But yeah, what an amazing time. I'm so excited. So I had to get this shirt. Yes.
You did plant new trees this year, like little
you can cover
whips.
them. There's netting. So for 2 weeks, just get some netting to cover them up. You want to discourage them from landing on those trees because the female oviposits into the nice thin little stems. I even have photographs of brood X ovipositing in wild quinine, which they're not going to survive. Maybe they could, I guess, because they actually pupate out of that plant and then they go down the ground and that's where they spend their 13, 17 years. So I didn't think about that. I guess they could potentially pupate out of a prairie because all mine are in prairie. In my yard, they're all coming out of prairie. They're all the different sheds I'm finding all over prairie. So maybe they are. Maybe we're finding something. This is going to be interesting this year because we're going to start documenting the heck out of it. Because we've always heard in the past that they go to oak trees and a few others, but they like the tender shoots of young growth. And they do impact trees, but maybe they're changing. Everything's changing. Insects do not follow rules, as my friend MJ Hatfield in Iowa always says. They don't follow the rules. They don't read the manuals. You cannot say, definitely this, insect does this and this all the time. No. Not very. Yeah. There'll be masses of death underneath the trees where they emerge. It's stinky. It's really stinky. I'm sorry, but it just is. And just all this underneath the park. I went to a park there in Danville, and it was just a mess. And then there were some hawthorn trees that were just completely coated with them. There'll be certain trees, and we don't know what ones they'll be, that will attract them, and they'll just go to those, and they'll just be covered with them. And it's going to be stinky. It's only 2 weeks. We can survive. As soon as I showed up, I think at Oakwood, Casey's, is where I met Katie at to find these cicadas. As soon as I pulled into the parking lot, they were hitting my car, walked into the Casey's. They were in Casey's. They flew in the doors, and the cicadas were actually in the gas station. So that's cool. So that's what it's going to be like. But, 2 weeks.
I have one more question. When you're searching for bugs, is there a particular month or part of the warm season that you find lots of bugs?
Soon as the flower, because I'm always looking at flowers. So as soon as the flowers start blooming, there's bugs coming in. Now there'll be bugs, bugs can overwinter later. I found some of those bugs on mountain mint and Ralph's Nickmaster December 23rd. It was warm enough. So whenever things get above 60 degrees, insects, and especially bugs, can move around. Bees have to be the ones that fly. Flies can handle a little cooler, but bees, it has to be 60 or above, and preferably sunny if it's that cool. But bugs can handle it. Box elder bugs are kind of active. Obviously, our brown marmorated stink bugs are coming into our house, and Yeah, they can move around. It's a little bit cooler, but yeah, once the flowers start blooming and until they're done. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so still freaking out about the trees. So when the cicadas come out, you say that last about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So if I start seeing a cicada in my yard, how much time do I have before they're going to start laying eggs?
Put the nets up now.
Pardon?
If you can get the nets, put them up now. You don't have much time. I know the.
I need flashlights.
Yeah, the Central Illinois Native Plant Society chapter was actually there's a Facebook group, and there's places where you can actually get nets and just nets to put over it. Obviously, not large trees.
I have purchased many trees and shrubs in the last 4 years, so they're all small.
They probably won't get them all. They may not get any of them.
Don't laugh. This is very disheartening.
I know. But yes, I mean that's basically how you protect them. If they're small enough, yeah, cover them with netting. Now, yeah, don't wait. Right. I don't either, and that's crazy. Now, I wasn't hardcore into insect photography, but I've been in my house for 15 years, and I don't remember. I don't remember them 13 years ago. I remember on 2 of my nature preserves. That's what I told my mother, and then they showed up in my backyard, so I don't know that I should say that anymore. I'd love to say that's true, but I don't want to be wrong. I'd love to say it's true, but I don't want to be wrong. Again, bugs don't read the handbook. I did not see any in my yard 13 years ago. I have them. Why I missed them 13 years ago, I don't know. Because I was out in my prairie. I was spending lots of time out in my prairie. Well, I saw them on my nature preserves, but I did not see them in my yard, and they're obviously there now. So,
I hate to ask you about this, but about 2 weeks ago, I found out that I'd had a tick in the center of my back for 2 weeks because I had sat on the ground to dig out some winter creeper.
Yep.
And then I happened to have a dermatologist appointment, and it was a tick.
Mm-hmm.
And so she cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
So then a friend of mine, knowing this, sent me an article that was in the Panagraph that said we're being invaded by an Asian tick.
Yes, we got Asian ticks now. They've been found in, Morgan County? There's a lot of tick diseases, and it's scary. And so my colleagues and I, because we spend so much time, I've already had probably at least 10 ticks attached on me this year, since February. I've told my doctor about this, and my doctor and I have this agreement. I had the Lyme's disease vaccine before it was outlawed, because apparently now it causes paralysis. But I had the vaccine.
There's a vaccine?
There was a vaccine. It's off the market now. It was a 2-shot deal. So I had the vaccine for Lyme's, but there's a lot more than that out there. And so I use permethrin. You can buy clothes that are pre-treated with insect shield. If you spend a lot of time outside, you definitely want to do that. Prescribed fire, if you burn your prairie, does cut down the ticks, but does not eliminate them. I'm bringing them home with me. So I bring them into the house for my whole family. And my pets, they're getting ticks from me, unfortunately. So I do treat almost all my clothes. I wear a hat to keep it off my hair, because long hair, they love to get in your hair. I found someone today. I was out, and this is raining again. There's less ticks when it's raining, I'll say that. So it's one thing. I use permethrin, and if my doctor and I, basically, if I have a bad reaction to a tick bite, usually like swells up, I immediately take antibiotics. And a lot of my colleagues have done that. And if antibiotics treats it, great, we don't worry about it. We don't test to find out what it is, we just take antibiotics. And I don't like to take antibiotics a lot, but I don't want those nasty. There's that one that actually you can't eat meat anymore. That's scary. With certain types of meat anyway. I think you can't eat beef and pork or something. I'm not a vegetarian, and I don't necessarily want to be by force,
Any other questions?
I have my ticks at my house.
Yeah.
And anyhow, there's a tick app, and what you can do is take a picture of it, send it in,
Right.
and I'll tell you they ask you some questions, what it looks like and stuff like that, and they tell you kind of if it's been feeding, so they can give you an idea
If it's
of if you are at risk. Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
and you can.
I'm terrible about that. I cannot, I'm really bad about taking pictures of ticks that are on me because my reaction is I'm going to destroy that thing. I'm going to destroy it immediately. I cut it up into pieces. I do flush it down the toilet. I destroy it. And as a photographer, if I see a tick on a plant, I'll photograph it. But if it's on me, it dies.
I carry a little medicine bottle
All right.
with
Good for you.
a cotton ball with alcohol, and it goes in there.
Yep. So I know a lot of people are doing that.
So it's that.
But there are the little seed ticks. I went to places, and I now treat my plant clothes, like I say. But I came back one time, and my legs were so coated with those seed ticks that I got out the razor, and I shaved my legs. And I used the dog shampoo, the flea and tick shampoo. I used it. I used it on my whole, I had 200 ticks on my legs. I used it. And then I used regular shampoo to try to get that stuff out of there. But yeah, I want them dead. I didn't want to mess with those. But I've also heard that if they're not attached more than 20 minutes, that you may be okay. But I haven't had the bullseye, but I've had, big grapefruit sized, swelling. And yep. So yeah, all the wonderful topics here.
If you're looking at looking for true bugs, are there certain times of the day where they're more likely to be out, and or other times of the day where you're not likely to find them at all?
Maybe. It depends on the weather. Obviously, if it's raining, the insects don't like rain. Sunny is better. I don't see bugs going away. Butterflies reach a certain time in the afternoon. If it's hot, then they just kind of go down to rest. I don't see that with bugs. So pretty much if the conditions are good, they're pretty active. I used to always say, well, the best time is this, and then it turns out I go somewhere and then I hit the mother load of bees at 4 in the afternoon. Well, that's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be at 10 a.m. So yeah, again, they don't follow the rule book. They just, like it warm. They'll feed in the wind too. The wind doesn't affect them, but rain does. And the bugs don't like rain. Depends on what species. Some of them have one. But yeah, there's a few of them. Usually it's the non-natives that can have the most because they're from the south or something. So your southern species will have up to, 4 or 5 generations. But around here, it's usually 1 or 2. It just really depends. If they don't come out until some of them don't come out until July. If they don't come out until July, they usually don't produce 1 generation. But if they're out now and they're still seen in October, then yeah, there's 2 to 3. I have all that in my book. All that I did the best I could to do the research and try to find out. There's some things we just don't know yet. So by putting everything out I have now, if I can get corrected, that'd be great because it attributes to science. So you just want to know. There's going to be things, there's definitely things in my book that are wrong, and we want to know about it. And so I'm happy to be corrected. And I'm hoping if you sell enough, then we get a second one or at least get some correction, but add to the knowledge of that and get things right. That's always good to know. So I would have liked to, I could have spent longer on my book, but my publisher's like, no, you need to get done with it now. Quit being a perfectionist. We're going to get it out now. There's going to be mistakes and we'll fix them later.
Well, it's a beautiful book.
Well,
and
thank
so
you.
if you haven't had a chance to look at it, she has copies back here that you can look through. I think it'd be a perfect coffee table book. It's that gorgeous. So thank you for coming
Yep, well,
tonight,
thank you
Angela.
all.